we've prepared a set of slides here, trying to cover generally a little bit of information about where the energy market is at the moment, what businesses can do to be mindful of this and reduce your energy consumption. But we're quite happy to tailor this as we go, so that if there's a general consensus that you want to cover one topic more than any other, we can try and do that as we go. And Elspeth, you'll monitor the chat, if that's okay? Okay, so go through a little bit of who we are, why we're here, what sort of advice we're able to provide, where the current energy market is at the moment, although that seems to change hourly. The government support that you might be aware of that's coming into effect as of last month, and some of the proactive measures that we can take to try and get those bills down and be a little bit more proactive about managing future energy spend. So we're a Carlisle based, we have Carlisle head office, I should say, that's where I am, but we're a team of around about 15 people, covering everything from helping businesses buy energy better with our energy brokering service. We help people understand their carbon footprint, which is a large part of that is linked to your energy usage, and again, how to reduce that and how to work towards net zero, which is Elspeth's speciality, and we have a webinar on that next Tuesday. And the last part of this is that advice, that taking the practical steps, being able to give someone a little bit of guidance about, well, this is where we are, but what can we do about it? So validating various technologies or behavioural changes to reduce your energy bills and reduce your carbon footprint at the same time. So as you're all probably aware, the energy market hasn't been out of the news for nearly 12 months now, and we're going to try and keep this quite high level. I don't want to get into the intricacies of it because it is a very technical situation at the moment, but without getting into the graph too much, the upwards chart, we all know what the upwards chart looks like, particularly in the last 4 or 5 months. Energy prices have just been going through the roof. We've gone from 12 or 15 pence a kilowatt tariffs, which some of you might still be holding on to or might have just moved away from, up to rates today of, well, we saw a high of around about 90 pence a kilowatt not too long ago. And part of being able to manage your energy, understand where your place is in that and what your business can do about it, is understanding the energy market. And we don't expect everyone to follow it in depth. We don't expect people to be an energy trader, but it certainly does help to be a little bit proactive and engaged in the subject. So we've seen prices go up and continue to go up, but the good news is that we've seen this, maybe, hopefully, we've tipped over the top of the curve and we're on a little bit of a downwards trend, particularly in about the last 10 days or so. Gas prices have been dropping. I think we're down about 8% over the weekend. And thankfully, that's due to a number of factors. Doesn't feel like it today, but an unseasonably warm, mild autumn, if you like. Windy, certainly very windy and very wet, which is great for wind and hydro, and solar's been good again. So renewable output's been very good, which has helped lessen the shortfall that we've had from the tight gas markets. And at the same time, we as a country have virtually full stock of LPG, which is being shipped in from around the world. So at the moment, from an energy security point of view, things are looking a lot more promising, and obviously that's reflected in the prices. But unfortunately, what we're not seeing is that being instantly filtered down into the rates that SMEs, Cumbrian SMEs, might pay for their energy. And it comes down to uncertainty as much as anything. Although prices are falling, there's obviously been some very volatile factors affecting the energy price, mainly Russia and the situation in Ukraine, unknowns about competition about energy from around the world. So 6 months ago, we were all competing for shipments of LNG, and when China came out of a self-imposed lockdown, they outbid everyone, and all the gas went in their direction, and we were left with a shortfall. And there's a lot of moving factors going on. Although we might be unseasonably warm right now, the market has to build in some sort of safety net in case we get an unseasonably cold winter and leaves us using more gas than what's predicted. So the question we get asked, we work with around about 1,500 businesses as clients of ours, and the question we get asked more often than not is, what can I do about it? If you've got a contract that's come to an end, some people might be out of contract at the moment, and it would be good to get an understanding of that later. Some people might have a contract that is imminently finishing or finishing in the next 6 months. And everyone's question is, what do we do about it? And we've seen this uncertainty, and it's made us very difficult for us to advise on that. But with this little bit more stability that we're seeing, we're trying to advise people on what length of contract, what type of contract suits them. And again, I'm going to generalize this because there's different options available depending on the size of the business. How much energy you use is one of the big criteria as well. But for the SMEs that make up the majority of Cumbrian businesses, anyone who's faced with a contract renewal typically has the option of a 1, 2, 3 year tariff with a range of suppliers that we'll all be familiar with. And at the moment, across our customer base, the majority of people are choosing a shorter term contract between 1 and 2 years, whereas prior to September last year, the average contract length was just over 3 years. And that traditionally worked out cheapest when energy prices rose by around about 7% a year. This time around, people are hedging their bets. They're hoping that we're going to see a little bit more stability, but I think people have come to a realization that this maybe isn't going to happen as fast as what we all hoped. And the Bank of England, amongst lots of other institutes, are saying that higher energy prices are here for the medium term in terms of energy buying, which is into the back end of 2024. Part of the reason is that there is no quick fix in improving our energy scenario as a country. There's been a lot of talk in the news in the last 2 weeks about supporting new nuclear projects, as back in onshore wind and offshore wind, but all of these projects take a long time to materialise, and there's a capital cost with that as well, which ultimately gets rolled back into all of our energy prices. So there isn't an expectation that we'll go back to the sub 20 pence a kilowatt mark. And I think in the next 2 years, we'll see a reduction, but it won't be particularly significant. In terms of the government support, so some people this might apply to some of you, I'm not sure. Again, it'd be good to get an understanding of that in the chat, but as it stands at the moment, the Energy Bill Relief Scheme runs from the 1st of October for 6 months. And for anyone who has agreed a contract from December last year or hasn't agreed a contract, has rolled out of contract and is currently on a variable rate, this will apply to most people there. And it's a discount on your unit rate for gas and electricity. This applies at the moment to virtually all organisations. And the level of discount depends on what the energy price was on the day that you signed up. So we do have a spreadsheet of this, which we can share afterwards. I won't go through it line for line now, but the level of discount roughly equates to about 40% for the typical gas and electricity user. And that's only for the next 6 months. I think it's important to understand that. And simply by choosing to join here, you probably make up the more engaged part of business, people within business who are actually trying to do something, realizing that this is a short-term fix and there does have to be a plan of action put in place, which we'll discuss later on. So the level of discount, the one thing that is catching businesses out at the moment is how much discount will be applied. If you're on a fixed term contract, then that's a set rate which protects you for 6 months, and you'll pay exactly the same rate for the next 6 months. If you're on a variable rate, then the amount of discount is capped, and there is a potential risk there that at some point, if energy prices start climbing again, you will end up paying more than the standard rate. It's a little bit of a risk at the moment, but the other side of that is if you enter into a contract now, then obviously you're in a fixed price contract for the next 12 months as a minimum, and you can't potentially capitalize on the declining market. Just to run an example, because I appreciate this is quite technical, there's a lot of numbers there, but the government have an example on their website for a pub, which typifies a lot of SMEs who might have quite a bit of space heating and use a bit of electricity. So this might be an larger office scenario as well. And they're facing an energy cost of £7,000 a month. And by the time you take the discount, apply everything else, they'll end up with around about a 40% reduction, taking a £7,000 bill down to just over £3,000 for that period. And this will be applied. It depends from one supplier to the next. When it's applied, it'll certainly be on everyone's bill as of the end of November. Some people who've just been getting their bills maybe in the last couple of days, depending on which supplier you're with, you might have seen this already applied. If not, it'll be applied and adjusted in your November invoice. So the energy market's volatile. It's certainly very tricky to advise in that market, but what can we do about it? And something we've advised all along, and it's always proven to be the best course of action for our clients, is to be engaged and to treat your energy in a different, change your mindset. So most businesses don't renew their contract until around about 2 months before the renewal date. And they treat that in the same way that I would treat our business insurance, for example. It's something that you have to get round to. Energy is not very exciting. It's dry as dust at the best of times, to be honest. And it's something that people aren't very engaged in. They can be a little bit scared of it. It's sometimes a task that is given to someone who perhaps hasn't got a handle on it in the same way. So that it might not be an FD or an MD. It might be given to someone in the office who it's just a task on their list that they just want to get rid of it. And what's really important is realizing that energy is a traded commodity, which is obviously being proven in the last 12 months, and get engaged in the market and capitalize on the troughs and when the prices are more favorable. But as I said before, it's not easy to do that. Not everyone's got time to be an energy trader. So how can you get engaged? And the easiest way to do that is to seek advice. Like anything else, like we have an HR consultant, or you might have an insurance broker to get you the better deal there. It's certainly worthwhile speaking to someone who has that specialization in energy prices and can give you an insight into that world. So by being proactive, as I've mentioned in the example before, it lowers your energy bills typically. Looking at what type of contract suits as well. So that's certainly become prevalent in the last 6 months when the energy market's tightened. Most of the suppliers left the market. They were refusing to quote. We had lots of customers ringing us up saying, I've been with the same supplier for 15 years and they won't renew my contract. And that's a risk strategy from the suppliers, people trying to avoid risk, but it leaves people in a tricky situation. And as I think we'll show shortly, it can lead to people making knee-jerk reactions and not necessarily finding the better suited deal on the market. In terms of contracts, for anyone who's using probably upwards of around about £100,000 worth of energy a year, there are other contract options emerging, which allows you to capitalise on the variation in the energy market. Typically, they'll outperform a standard fixed contract by around about 15%, and they don't necessarily need any more input. Again, by working with an expert, working with an energy broker like ourselves, then you can capitalise on that without taking any more internal resources. We're often asked about grants, subsidies. Surely the government are going to do something about this. What what does that look like and when's it going to come? Again, we're kept up to date with all of that. Our clients receive a newsletter on this, and we're trying to, like any other energy expert, trying to keep people informed of what's going on. And then some of the other things which aren't traditionally done particularly well, checking bills. It's amazing how many energy bills have an error, typically in the to the detriment of the customer. But we'll come on to an example for that later on, and just really trying to shake it up to make sure that you are paying as little as possible, despite being in a fixed term contract. We'll talk about energy policy, and Elspeth is our carbon expert, and there's a webinar next week on that, and how businesses can reduce their carbon footprint, and part of that is energy, which we'll come on to in a minute. And the other thing is having someone fight your corner and be able to do some of the legwork and validate some solutions. So we have clients ring us all the time saying, I think I want solar panels. And we can look at that, but also look at a range of 10 or 15 different solutions. And it might be that solar is well suited, but it might be that there's 2 or 3 solutions before that are either cost neutral or with instantaneous savings, or there might be things that maybe if you've got a limited pot of money, there's better ways to spend your money to get the results that you're looking for. Now, this is, don't get too caught up in the numbers here. Unfortunately, energy is a numbers-driven market, and we're trying to just want to illustrate an example using this. So this is a quote from today for a client for energy, and on the whole, there that's comparing 1-year terms. And the reason we've put this up is without having the ability to search the market. The danger is by doing what you've always done, staying with your supplier that you've always worked with. In this case, it's EDF or Opus, but I'm not knocking them. It's just they happen to be bottom of the list today. And the danger is it could be costing businesses an awful lot of money. In this example here, if you were a client, you're already with EDF and you ring them up for a renewal rate and they give you what's on the bottom there, and then you rang Drax as to double check, then you think, brilliant, okay, well, there's only there's £400 in it between one and the other, we might go with Drax. But the thing is, there's 7 or 8 suppliers on that list there, and the difference between the cheapest and the most expensive 1-year deal is 44%. And we see an awful lot of this. And these aren't obscure suppliers. These aren't people that are at risk of going bust, like we saw with domestic energy last year. You know, that's the difference between EDF and British Gas. And that's a huge, and this just to put this into context, this is a business that only uses 30,000 kilowatt hours of electricity a year, which previously would have been around about £1,000 a month. That difference there, all of a sudden, is £7,000 a year. You take that over a 3-year deal, and it is a significant chunk of money. And very few businesses have the resources, the time to go and ring or email 15 or 20 different suppliers to get a rate. And this is one of the values, it's a good example of the value of reaching out to someone like an energy broker who can advise and compare the whole market on your behalf. What we've seen in the last 12 months is that not only there's a financial disparity between the suppliers, but also on the green energy side of things. And I think most organisations want to be green. They like to. They certainly wouldn't like to do any more damage to the planet. But one of the easiest and simplest things you can do to reduce your carbon footprint is simply switch to a green energy tariff. But without having someone being able to validate that and compare tariffs based on their carbon footprint, which that graph illustrates, the danger is, again, I'm not singling anyone out for any one reason, but third on the list there, Scottish Power, one of the big 6, a very well-known supplier. But if you rank them based on their environmental credentials, they're one of the worst performing. Whereas the likes of Opus or British Gas or E.ON further down the list there, simply by switching to them, not only might you save an awful lot of money, but it could be the easiest way to significantly reduce your carbon footprint. And in this in this example, again, for someone spending around about £1,000 a month previously, that's a huge 15 tons of carbon a year, which is like the equivalent of our one person's carbon footprint, or buying a brand new car. So that disparities between the suppliers has certainly opened up both financially and on the green element side of things. Just as you might expect, when times get tough financially, there's a risk that people's environmental ethics, if you like, start getting tested. And we've certainly seen that with suppliers who are trying to get their energy prices down. And that might be actually by going backwards environmentally and moving a little bit towards fossil fuels because it was a cheaper option. So that's a little insight into energy prices, the energy market. But at some point you have got to sort a contract out, and no matter when that is, it's going to be more painful than it was 12 or 18 months ago. So what can you do outside of that to reduce your energy spend? And there's a couple of simple solutions there, leading up to some of the larger, more capital outlay expenditures, which we'll run through as well. So I mentioned earlier about looking into your bills and identifying any errors, and quite a common one we see amongst hospitality is a little charge at the bottom of your bill. Most people don't even read it. Just above the line that says VAT, it says CCL or climate change levy. And historically, people haven't given it much attention. On your bill, it might be anywhere between £20 and £200 a month for an SME. But in hospitality, in the charity sector, and in some manufacturing as well, people don't realise that they're exempt from paying this, and it's not automatically applied. We've found dozens and dozens and dozens of cases where we've actually identified this on our customers' behalf and then helped them claim back up to 4 years worth of overpayments, which in this example here, without reading through it line for line, was around about £20,000 in a rebate and a saving in the first year for this client, which is I don't know if anyone's familiar with them, but it's a accommodation out at near Whitehaven. And they've been paying it for years and years, never thought anything of it. But it's £20,000 back, and that was just at the start of lockdown as well, so it was very welcome as well. And so anyone who that might apply to, some sectors at the bottom there, we advise, have a look at a bill, and if that's on there, reach out to someone like ourselves and we can help manage that process to actually claim that money back. And that's just an example of one element of it. We see it all the time, particularly with charities on the VAT, where they're being charged 20% VAT instead of 5% or 0%. And these are relatively significant sums of money that people can get back and stop paying in the future, and there's no cost to it. Outside of that, ultimately, the first place to start is by understanding your energy use and where that's going. Looking at, and this might be teaching people to suck eggs here, but looking at technologies, looking at the way that you use energy, the time that you use energy, and making those changes that perhaps weren't that important previously, but I know at home we're all feeling it now, and it's the same in business, and it's a great opportunity to engage our employees in that as well. So, for example, one of my biggest bugbears, you can drive around, I've driven around Carlisle on a night, and you drive past an office block and all the lights are on, but there's no one in. And we've seen an awful lot of that. People forget about it, they're not there. Lighting, for example, can make up a huge chunk of a business's energy spend, and it's wasted energy. I know previously people have put stickers on lights and things like that to help them try and reduce it, but now it's a great opportunity to engage people in it and actually set up a little team within an organisation to help people manage reducing that energy spend. And it's making simple changes, opening the blinds and turning lights off, which I've got to admit, that's exactly what I've done now. I've got the lights on and the blinds shut, and it's a bad habit. Looking at timers, putting sensors on warehousing lights, looking at heating controls, the amount of businesses we go to run an energy audit or a carbon audit, and the heat in empty meeting rooms. or empty office space where no one's come back after working from home. And it is literally just wasting money. And it pays to have someone walk around, be a little bit conscious of it, look at thermostats, look at control strategies, and just turn things off. One of our biggest bugbears is going into office spaces where the heating's on, but the air conditioning's on at the same time, and they're fighting on against each other, and you're wasting electricity and gas all in one go. And then there's equipment, computers. A desktop computer, if it's not turned off at night, could be costing the business £35 a year. We're seeing heating, the thermostat wars that you always get at this time of year. One person likes it at 22 degrees, one person likes it at 18, and the backward forwards all day long, and it needs to be cut out. Raising the temperature 1 degree more than what's necessary could be costing around about 8% a year on the heating bill for a business. And it's about, I said, talking about a couple of times about educating staff. Most people are disengaged. 59% of employees aren't aware that a company even has an environmental strategy. To be honest, most companies probably don't have an energy and environmental strategy as well. And it would certainly pay to spend a couple of hours getting something down on paper and communicating that to your staff so they can be part of the solution as well. Now, this is an incredibly boring picture, but this highlights again what the benefit of bringing someone in external who can sit at a higher level and look at the way energy is being used and take that away and identify the waste. So most people in an organization, they get an energy bill through and they see, sorry, 1 second. I'm just going to use your code up there. Yeah. Sorry about that. Most people will just see a bill like that British Gas one on the left hand side, and but what we actually see behind the meter and with our energy monitoring software is a chart like this one in the middle. And what that's meant to highlight is the areas in red are areas of higher energy usage, which you might see between 8 and 5 in a normal organization. But this was an audit that we carried out a couple of weeks ago for a business, manufacturing business, and actually all we queried was, why do they use quite a lot of energy through the night? Facilities manager said, well, we're shut, there is no energy use through the night or the weekend. And what it turned out was, as it says there, all the machinery had been left on a timer, and for 2 years some of the machinery had been running overnight and no one had any idea. And that was a £7,000 a year saving, which was, again, it was found in the first 2 hours of us working together, and it's cost them next to nothing to find that difference. Outside of that, the lower cost or the no cost options, then it's an opportunity to invest. And it's about the cost of doing nothing at the moment. If you don't spend anything on trying to reduce your energy bill, then the outcome is certain. You're going to be spending more on energy for the next 10 or 20 years. So there's an opportunity here to be proactive, reduce your bill, rather than that money going to your energy supplier. That can be being used to pay off some technology, a solution, and in time give you a return on investment. And some of the solutions, LED lighting is a big one. Most organizations have thought about it, or perhaps done a partial LED lighting refit. And the thing that we hear all the time that gets my goat is we replace lights when they break. And the issue is, you could be walking into somewhere that's 50% halogen lighting, and that lighting might not break for 3 or 4 years. But in the meantime, if you proactively spent the money and replaced it with LED straight away, at the moment, that payback period might be less than 18 months. So by actually not doing anything and being reactive rather than proactive, it's costing more money than the installation cost at the start. And that goes across the board with some bigger technologies for the likes of manufacturing with combined heat and power. Solar is enormous at the moment. There's a 600% increase in the solar market, but I think there's a misconception amongst businesses and homeowners at the minute that that solar doesn't pay. There was the feed-in tariff up until 5 years ago, which the whole industry relied on to give it a return on investment and a payback. But there's a misconception that without the feed-in tariff, solar's dead in the water. But what people don't realise is that the cost of the equipment's come down by around about 70% in the last 3 years. And at the same time, with the energy prices going up, you're now seeing systems with a payback period, well, certainly less than 5 years, but as little as 2 years, or a 50% return on investment. And that's for a tried and tested technology, very few moving parts, long warranties. It's a great opportunity to invest in something which, as this example at the bottom shows, if you don't invest the money, you spend £240,000 on energy. If you spend £20,000 capital cost, over the next 20 years, you've saved £60,000. So I've gone through that quite quickly as a bit of a whistle stop, to be honest, but more than anything, it's hopefully to leave some time for some questions and answers, and maybe go back to some of these points. But the key points are to get engaged, have a strategy, have a plan that isn't, I'll look at it at the last minute, or we'll look at it when we get our renewal letter. If that is the time, it's probably too late to do anything proactive about trying to reduce your energy spend through your tariffs. It's looking at expert advice. Taking some of this advice is free, some of it's subsidised, some of it has a payback period and return on investment, and bringing in someone externally who can help you manage that change. And then finally, be proactive to do something about it. Look at ways to reduce your energy bills by spending a little bit of money now. So, sorry if I've gone through that quite quickly. I can't actually see the questions in the chat, but certainly if I can open it up now, it'd be great to run through that. Elspeth, have we got anything?
There's nothing in the chat as of yet, but if anyone has any questions that they think of after this session, I'm just going to put all of our details in now, so you can email Ryan directly and he's happy to answer anything. Same with me. And I'll just put all of our details there. But yeah, if anyone wants to unmute and ask a question, or if you don't want to unmute, please put it in the chat. I'm monitoring it, so go ahead.
It would be great to know why people are here this afternoon, and what people are hoping to bring from it, what questions people have got. So there is something in there.
That's me, sorry.
Oh, I see you, Elspeth, sorry, yeah. Give it a minute, but is there anything anyone would like to ask? No? So...
Hi, sorry, this is Janet Gay from the Lakes College in West Cumbria. I'm very sorry I was late joining the meeting. I was dragged into another meeting, I'm afraid. Would it be possible for me to get a copy of the PowerPoint that you've done, for me to go back to the parts I missed?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll circulate something afterwards, or Leslie might circulate something through. Yeah. Is there anything in particular that you were looking into, something that of interest to you?
No, not really. We're at the moment we have got an energy advisor within the college, and we are looking at different options. And trying to get staff involved at all stages. We've got an environmental group as well. We're looking at different projects, looking at possible solar panels, but obviously it's either the initial outlay or looking at different options we can have. But we are looking at that at the moment.
And how are you finding the working group? Are people engaged in that? Are they up for getting involved?
Yes, we've got a number of people involved. I'm not actually myself involved. I'm the facilities administrator, so unfortunately I have to pay the gas and electric bills. So that's where my involvement comes in. But we have got, like I say, an environmental group and a sustainability, and we have got policies set up. And I believe we achieved the ISO 14001 accreditation earlier this year. So we are really trying, but obviously also looking for any other advice we can get or help, to reduce these bills.
Yeah, well,
and their carbon, you know.
Well, the two go hand in hand, and that's why next week's webinar is about carbon. We've seen it time and time again. A carbon audit is an energy audit in a sense, because your scope 1 and scope 2 emissions of a carbon audit is your heating and your electricity usage. And what we've seen there from a financial return from a carbon audit is, I could run off lots of examples, but we worked with a manufacturing company recently, and from our results, they were with a supplier that wasn't particularly green. There was a good opportunity there to switch, but at the same time, they were days away from a greener rates with a new supplier, which would actually have increased their carbon footprint. So by us coming in and being able to advise on that, I think we reduced their overall carbon footprint by about 58%, was it, Elspeth? Instantly, and but at the same time save £5,000 a year compared to the tariff that they're about to sign up to. So the two do go hand in hand. You can't really exclusively talk about one without thinking about the other.
No. Sorry.
No, sorry, you go.
And you know, we are doing things like the LED lighting. You know, we're doing big projects to change all this lighting over to LED. So you know, we have got things in the process, you know, progressing with things. But like I say, any further advice will be very much appreciated.
Yeah. Is there anyone else? Anyone else with a hand up at the moment? No.
Liz has a hand up, I think. If you want to unmute Liz or drop something in the chat, if you do have a question.
So while there's nothing else, so in terms of that practical advice moving forwards, there are a lot of things that we can offer, which might be site assessments, energy audits, a review of energy bills, and any bill validation, looking at any billing errors as well. There's the carbon auditing element of it, and then obviously there's the validation of technologies. So that is solar, LED lighting, voltage management, boiler replacement, heat pumps, biomass boilers. There's so many different options out there at the moment, and because of the higher energy prices, and they're predicted to stay higher energy prices, all of these technologies have all of a sudden got a lot more attractive. So if there is anyone out there thinking we want to do something but we don't know where to turn, then certainly reach out and we can point you in the right direction, if nothing else.